As a 37-year-old millennial elderly with no social life and who is always chronically online, binging on plant YouTube videos, I think we can all unanimously agree that I know my fair share of plant trends and I've seen them come and go. Which is why in today's video, I'm going to be accurately, if I do say so myself, predicting what I believe are going to be the biggest houseplant trends of 2026, my loves. And I think I am honestly onto something with these trends. And I have a feeling that when you are done watching this video, you are going to agree and perhaps adjust accordingly. My name is Ibu Kwame, plant icon based here in Lagos, Nigeria. And girlies, without much ado, grab a cup of coffee, grab someone, grab something, clutch onto your pearls, perhaps. For this one, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Okay, so in this my fancy little laptop here, my membership girlie saw it first. Your boy has now been able to afford a laptop. I'm so proud of myself. But anyways, I have compiled a list of what I suspect will be the biggest houseplant trends of 2026. And the first thing on this list of ours, and I think we're all going to agree with this one, is I see plant people, especially in the coming future, in the coming year, revisiting once forgotten, so-called outdated classic plants. Those plants that back then during the Panini era, a lot of us dismissed and a lot of us overlooked because they weren't as trendy and they weren't as rare anymore. I have a strong feeling my spider senses are telling me that the girlies in 2026 are going to start having a deeper appreciation and revisiting those plants. And that is because the concept of a rare plant these days almost seems like it doesn't even exist. Plants these days are only rare for like 5 minutes, thanks to the likes of tissue culture. That rare plant that you had to ship all the way from Indonesia, you can easily find them for the most part in your big box stores. So rarity isn't a major influence as to why people now purchase plants. And I believe that is going to be the rising trend in the coming future. People are simply going to purchase plants because they like them, which is why I strongly believe those classic and once forgotten plants we've snubbed because, they weren't so rare anymore. I believe the girlies are going to revisit them. I'm talking about the likes of the Anthurium clarivinum, classic Anthuriums like the Clestrylum, the Clarivellium, I hope I'm pronouncing it properly, plants like the Philodendron hashtatum, Alocasia black velvet. I remember when those plants had their 3 months of fame during the Panini era, when they were considered rare gems, right? Then the moment the next rare plant came, we forgot about them. But let me know your thoughts because I already see this happening. I personally have started to observe that not just in my collection, but also amongst my friends as well. We're just honestly just buying these plants because we love them. And I think that is the attitude of the people who now collect plants and also the people who are now coming into this hobby. All that nonsense competition and collecting plants like they were Pokemon cards back in the Panini era when we had so much time in our hands. I think that is quickly disseminating and, balance and sanity is beginning to come into this hobby. I'm curious to know your thoughts, but I see that happening in 2026. The next thing I see happening in the coming year is that I think there's going to be more of a focus on curating plant nooks as opposed to plant shells or even having or displaying a massive collection. I think the girlies coming into this hobby are now less concerned about the numbers and the amount of plants that they have, or even the so-called collection of plants that they have. And they are more going to be concerned about how these plants are styled in their home, how they are using plants to style their home, to make their home a bit more aesthetic, to make their home a bit more stylish. It's going to be less so about the collection you have. I mean, we're going to have a fair share of collectors. We're always going to have that. But I think generally it's going to be less so of that and more of, okay, this is how I use this plant to style this little corner. I see that happening again because we now have a new wave and a developing and changing demographic of people who are coming into this hobby. Back then, we came into this hobby. Some of us came into this hobby during the Panini era when we were bored. We had all this time on our hands. So we were just collecting, and it was all about building a jungle. But now, especially with the rise of things like lifestyle content, people are more into the aesthetic and the interior decor of this hobby, as opposed to look at me, look at all the plants I have, look at all the collection of plants I have. Which is why, and I think if you are a fellow creator in this niche, you will see that plant styling videos are on such high demand and they do well. The girlies want to know how to style their indoor collections. Also, when you really think about it, we millennials are getting older. Yeah. We currently still make the bulk of crazy plant people, but we're getting older and we're now being able to afford our houses, afford to get a mortgage. And I think we're now focused on the interior decor of our new homes and our bigger spaces. So I do suspect that in the coming year and also in the coming years to come, the girlies are still going to be very much into plants, but the focus is going to be on using plants to style a space, using plants as an extension of their interior decor, curating cozy spaces with plants as opposed to just displaying plants or displaying a collection of plants. But I'm curious to know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you agree with me? Do you see that happening? Let me know in the comment section, darlings. By the way, if you're enjoying this content or you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. And if you want to see more of my behind the scenes personal shenanigans and my personal struggles, life dilemmas, whatever, check out my YouTube membership. Let's proceed, girly. Now, this next point is similar to the previous one I stated, right? I think and I predict that a lot of the girlies are going to be buying plants purely for their aesthetic and for their design element. In fact, I think there's going to be less of a focus on foliage and more of a focus on architecture and design and growth profile. Even okay, I see plants, and I've talked about this before in my plant styling videos. You can never go wrong if aesthetic and interior decor is your goal. You can never go wrong with plants that have an exposed trunk, an exposed woody trunk, and minimal foliage. Oh my goodness gracious, that is the ultimate architectural and interior design plant. And I think and I suspect, I'm in the spirit. I think and I suspect that the girlies are going to be prioritizing plants that look quite aesthetic over like foliage plants with the big leaves and all of that and that wild jungle look. More of the aesthetic minimal look than the wild jungle statement look that we during the Panini era, cherished more. So certain tree-like bonsai plants and plants that have that minimal architectural look, I think they are going to have their moment in 2026. But as usual, I'm really curious to know your thoughts. Do you think I'm onto something? Or am I just spilling baloney? Am I being delusional? Let me know your thoughts. But you know what? I think I strongly suspect I'm onto something with this point. Now, this one, babes, the girlies may think I'm crazy. Some may even think I'm paranoid, but I strongly believe I'm onto something with this one, and I see it being a necessary trend that is coming and is here to stay. I think there is going to be like a drive and an increased demand for growing edible plants. Edible plants, not in your garden outdoors, but also indoors. Yeah. I think generally there is now a greater interest in being able to grow what you eat. And you can't blame people, babes. I mean, look at what's happening in the world. Sometimes it gives off very dystopian vibes in the news. People want to be able to grow what they eat. But I think People are going to stop limiting themselves to trying to grow what they eat outdoors and are going to start demanding for options and inventions to grow what they can eat indoors. Because let's face it, not all of us wants to wait until we have our own property or we have huge property with outdoor space to be able to grow what we can eat, especially considering what we watch in the news. So I think there is going to be like a demand to be able to pull off grain what we can eat, at least some of the staples, some of the veggies indoors. And I think some of these companies are gonna even come out with options, inventions, things that can meet that demand. I dare say, and call me crazy, call me imaginative. I dare say there are also going to be some varieties of vegetables that have been tissue cultured or even modified to be able to grow indoors more readily. Girlies, tell me what you think about this. Am I being crazy? Or is this like, am I being far-fetched or is this realistic? And I do hope that this is the case because, I mean, like I said, it's very necessary and very important that everyone, even if you don't like edible plants, I've always thought edible plants are ugly, they are quite atrocious, and I still do think so. But I've also started dabbling in growing my plants. The other, I had a field tomato project. What girl? Yeah, story for another day. But I think more and more people are going to develop that interest, and there's going to be more of a demand to be able to pull it off indoors. Come rain, come sunshine, in winter, in spring, whatever the elements may be. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Now, this point, I see this happening, and I call me delusional again. But I also, I'm going to take credit for this one. I will also say the likes of Sydney Plant Guy, because he really inspired me as well for this one. I see a lot of people growing pothos, that classic plant that will never go out of style, loves. Never go out of style. Come rain, come shine, will always be here to stay. But I see the trend for that plant being a lot of the girlies growing these beautiful specimens on poles. Yeah, on poles. I know we've all had our fair share of moss poles and we don't want to have anything to do with them. But you can never go wrong with growing a pothos on a moss pole. When you grow a pothos on a moss pole, even if it's your regular schmegular pothos on a frigging moss pole, it becomes a beautiful sight to behold. And I see that, having a bit of like a movement, a subculture in this hobby, if you would, of people who just grow these beautiful pothos specimens on poles, or they give them something to climb. I'm currently in the process of growing a mandula pothos on a pole, and I look at it every now and then and I'm like, Jesus Christ of the living Nazareth, why didn't I think of this earlier? It looks even more expensive than some of my other expensive and rare plants. So I definitely see a movement of people getting that $5 pothos, whatever variety may be, and taking the time and taking the energy to grow it on a pole and having these beautiful specimens. Oh, let me know, do you think that's a bit too niche? Do you think that's a bit too niche to be a trend? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. But as I was coming up with this video, I was like, oh, I need to include this point in this video because I definitely see it happening. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, my love. This one is a wild card, okay? This is a crazy wild card, but I just have a feeling that this plant genus or this specific plant will have a bit of a boost, especially amongst my American girlies, because everyone else around the world, especially my Southeast Asian girlies, they seem to be quite fanatical about this plant, and for good reason. It's a beautiful one. But I also think my American girlies are gonna catch on to it to a certain extent next year. I'm talking about aspecias. Yeah, I still do not know why they are not a household staple amongst my American girlies. You all will willingly embrace the African violet, but her cousin, the Especia or the flame violet as she's commonly called, for some strange reason, that plant is not receiving the PR and the love and the acceptance. And I think that is gradually beginning to change. I don't know if I'm being delusional or optimistic, but I see my American girlies finally seeing this plant for what it really is. I made an special video a while ago, and when I made it, it didn't get a lot of views. But all of a sudden, I'm seeing the girlies I'm seeing the views gradually climb, and I'm seeing the girlies having an interest in that video, and a lot of them are Americans. And so, yes, I see it being more prominently featured in your big box stores, and it's having a bit of a moment. And I hope so because it is honestly very beautiful. I've made an special care video, so I'm not going to repeat how to take care of this plant. I strongly would advise you check that out. But I do hope I'm right with this one. Let me know your thoughts during the comment section. My American girlies, is this a plant that you would welcome into your home and your collection? Let me know. So my loves, we have come to the end of this video. I'm really curious to know your thoughts though. Was I onto something? Do you agree with me on this trends that I mentioned? I have a sneaky feeling that come this time next year, I'm going to revisit this video and tell you I told you so. I told you so. But let's see how it goes. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and share all that good stuff. You do also want to check out my YouTube membership, and I'm also curious to know your own predictions. What are your own predictions for what will be the next big houseplant trend in 2026? Drop them below in the comment section. I'll be checking them out. All right, my love, see you in the next one.